I've spent nearly a decade studying at Ivy League Plus universities, reading hundreds of pages a week, and I'm currently writing my dissertation at Harvard. So trust me, I understand what you're going through right now. So, in this video, we're going to talk about how to read and take notes like me, a Harvard student, technically Harvard PhD candidate. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. Glad to have you here, and I hope you stick around by liking, commenting, and subscribing to support my channel. So here's probably my biggest piece of advice when it comes to reading and taking notes like a Harvard student or like me, or just like someone who's very productive in general, right? Preview the text, book, article, whatever you may be reading, preview it. And what do I mean by preview the text? Before diving into any book or article or long reading that I have to do, I always scan the book for chapters or articles for headings to make sure that I understand, number one, the full scope of what I'm getting into, number of pages, how many sections. I read the first sentence or topic sentence of a few of the chapters or paragraphs of the article that I'm looking at. This is essential because it gives me a roadmap of what to expect and helps me identify the main points of the reading before I even start. So then I can budget my time, mental energy, and resources for reading the book and making sure I actually have time to understand everything it contains. Here's a bonus tip. For books, I also like to flip through the index at the end of the book to get an idea of some major keywords that show up a lot within the book. So I have a good idea of some of the subtopics or arguments or people or events that the book might cover. So the key here is to familiarize yourself with what you're reading before you start fully reading the text, book, article, or whatever it is you may be interested in. These are 5 things you should keep in mind or take note of while you're reading. This is essential for getting the information you need and for probably understanding why a certain book, chapter, or article was assigned. The first thing is get to know the author. I'm not saying personally, kind of weird. I'm saying get to know the author's background. Research the author briefly. Look at their academic background, some of the previous things that they've published, maybe their theoretical leaning, because they all will provide a bit of context for the arguments that you're soon going to pick out from the book or chapter or whatever it is that you're reading. So, some sample questions to ask. And this is why it's really important. Is the author an economist or a historian? Shout out historians. Is the author an economist, an historian, a sociologist? All of these different kinds of things will help you understand the background in which the book or article or chapter was written. It helps you get a good perspective. So, the second thing to keep note of or to think about as you're reading and taking notes is identify the main argument. As you're reading, constantly ask yourself, what is the author's main or central claim in this text? Look for clear thesis statements. They're often found in the introduction or the conclusion of the text. And sometimes the thesis statement might not always be explicit. So, an explicit thesis statement might say, I am arguing X because of Y in order to better understand Z. Probably not in that exact format, but that's an example of a clear thesis statement. Sometimes the thesis statement is a bit more implicit. So as you're reading, just try to understand, what does the author want me to walk away with by the end of reading this text? The third thing is recognize the interventions that the text is making. How does the work or the text contribute to existing scholarship? Note where the author explicitly points to their unique contribution to the field of study or to previous scholarship that they might be building off of. Often authors will have somewhat of a small lit review or just talking about scholars that came before them and how they're either building upon their work or maybe just taking a different path from that previous scholar or set of scholars. Either way, take note. The fourth thing is evaluate the evidence. Now, I'm a historian, so I'm constantly looking at what archives people are using or what material they're citing. So, for example, is the author citing secondary or primary sources? What kind of sources is the author using? How convincing is the author's interpretation of those sources? The most important thing is evaluate how the evidence is being used and what exactly the evidence is. The fifth thing I think might be a little bit more geared towards graduate level reading and research, or if you're a senior working on a thesis. So, the fifth thing is note any limitations to this work. So, it's important to remember that an author cannot absolutely cover everything in one text. It's just not possible. Also, some of the best arguments are very narrow, niche, or very pointed. Now, if you're going to use this text in your own research or your own thesis statement, it's important to see how the author is building their argument. And as a scholar, you must ask questions as if you may be building off of or going in a different direction than this text. So ask questions like, what aspects did the author not cover in this specific text? Are there potentially any alternative interpretations of the theories or the sources that they may use in their specific text? Another question to ask is, what are some interesting footnotes or concepts that might have been covered that you would like to learn more about? Or the intersection of certain ideas that you would be interested in studying further? Is the methodology or the theory they're using helping or limiting the possibilities of their argument in their text? The key here is to find ways that you can build upon this work or potentially diverge away from it. But it's just about engaging deeply with the text. So essentially, the key to effective note taking is paraphrase key points in your own words, note your own thoughts and questions about what you just read, and connect ideas to other readings or concepts. It's important to see how the books you're reading are in conversation with one another. So, I know a lot of us are moving towards digital note taking, and there are some great tools out there. I personally use Notion for writing my dissertation and organizing all of my research and readings for my dissertation. They're perfect for creating tags, linking notes across the entire system I've built, and keeping everything in one place. Plus, they're searchable, which is a huge time saver when I'm trying to remember certain things I read or I need a very specific citation in my dissertation. And I'm like, I know I've read this somewhere. So when I was studying for my comprehensive exams, this was many years ago, but when I was studying for my comprehensive exams, I used Microsoft OneNote. It was just a digital notebook where I kept all of my notes for all of my comprehensive exams. If you would love a video of me going over my digital notebook, comment below and I'm happy to make one. So remember, reading at a level like this requires time and practice. I have spent nearly a decade studying at Ivy League Plus universities, so I know how hard it is to be assigned hundreds of pages a week, have to read hundreds of books for exams, and trying to figure out a system to read efficiently yet deeply. So don't get discouraged if it feels challenging at first. With time, you will develop a more critical eye and a deeper understanding of the scholarship and books that you're reading. If you found this video helpful, subscribe for more academic tips and insights. Drop a comment below with your own reading strategies, or let me know what kind of video I should make next. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to go back to writing my dissertation.